That was your signal.
Oh, and there we go. Welcome everyone that is here. This is the Blacks in Cybersecurity Q&A with Ryan and Tan from Synac. And we're just going to talk through what Synac is, some of the things that they offer us, and then at the end just have an open forum for anybody to sort of clear up any questions, comments, or concerns that they may have. With that, if you have any questions, please post them in the chat, and then our moderator will be reading them aloud once we get to that actual section. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to Ryan to introduce himself.
Okay, thanks, Nick. Appreciate it. Hey, everyone. My name is Ryan Rutan. I am the Director of Community here at Synac. I had the option today of putting together, I have this slide deck that I can walk through that's pretty lengthy and can get kind of dry at some points in terms of explaining what Synac does, what the Synac Red Team is, and all that fun stuff. That being said, I opted to, I think I can give you a really quick conversation for about 5, 6, 7 minutes. And then hopefully we just have a discussion about it. I think one of the biggest things, for those who've potentially heard about Synac, you've heard about Synac Red Team, or you've, seen us on social media, you've clicked and reviewed stuff. There's a lot of information out there. And so I think there's a lot of a nuance in terms of how things get done, what the experience is like and whatnot, which is what I really wanted to focus on today. And specifically wanted to focus on the notion of the BIC partnership that we're working on to try to build up a cohort, if you will, of strong BIC Red Team pen testers within the Synac Red Team, and how that can provide opportunity to the BIC community at large. A little bit of background about me. I have been in and around technology since I was pretty much crawling. I started programming around 7 or 8 and started building computers shortly after that. Went into, starting it at ISP tech support when I was in high school, helped launch some ISPs when I was in high school, did consulting work, dropped out of college, went back to college, got a business degree, went back into IT, then pivoted into marketing and then collaboration. And now I do kind of this role that is a consortium of everything that I've done in my life, which is I run a community of hackers around the world that are geared towards helping the world become a safer place by securing the assets of, the top companies out there. So again, it's really, really fun for me. My job basically is to go out, find new talent, find new hackers, find people who are, have that passion, that spark, that intrigue to kind of delve into cybersecurity and find a way to harness that and, turn that into a powerful weapon for, our customers in my company. So guys, I get to basically talk nerd all day, which is really fun. But in terms of what Synac is, so Synac in general is a platform, it's a security platform. The tagline is the premier security testing platform. And the way you think of it is that, the big differentiator for Synac is that, we recognize that there is no such thing as the problem of cybersecurity, the skill gap, the talent gap, all the things around, there's way too much need for cybersecurity talent and there's far too little of it. And there's this need of well, hey, how do we close that gap? Well, there's 2 ways that you can do it, right? You can try to train a bunch of people and bring them all in, right? Which is great. It has a long tail effect because as you train people, they tend to, take a while to mature up into proficiency. But the other half of it is being able to take a group of researchers and rather than lock them up under a specific contract or a specific company, put them so that they can share their skills and knowledge and expertise across as many companies in the world. This is kind of where you get the crowdsource mechanism, right? So you've seen plenty of players out there around in crowdsource around this. Bug bounty as an analogy that you probably will hear around Synac and whatnot. It's actually just bug bounty for us is just a tactic. It's not actually who we are as a company. It's actually just a method for how we get some stuff done. The thing that Synac does differently is that we look at how do we marry that raw talent, that crowdsourced, potential, the stream of potentiality, and bring it into fold for the customer. And we do that with marrying that human element with a machine and technology element. And so by bringing all of that information, the human element from the Synac Red Team, pairing that with the Synac platform and the Synac delivery methodology, we provide a customer experience that's a way to help customers become more secure in their assets and overall become more educated at producing secure assets in the future. So that's kind of at a high level what we do, as a company, right? We're basically a crowdsourced, we have a crowdsourced element to our platform that helps customers become more secure. My job is ultimately to make sure that, I am attracting the right talent, to make sure that I'm retaining that talent, and to make sure that I'm staying relevant in terms of the eyes of the hackers, and making sure that the programs that we put in place, the ways in which we recognize and respect our researchers are in top notch, and ultimately maintain the brand and high quality bar that has been set by the Synac brand and the Synac Red Team brand. So in terms of, a high level, I'm not going to go into much of, there's a lot of marketing detail that I can go into that. There's plenty of that online that if you're interested, you can go look at. But long story short is, if you want to work on really cool targets, Fortune 500, Global 2000, US government targets, things like that. These are all things that are the pedigree that Synac has to offer. When you get into the Synac Red Team, we ultimately will review your performance. We look at your engagement scores. We look at your skills. We look at all the different aspects, and we find ways to uncork those opportunities for you to give you more signal, more skill, and ultimately, provide that opportunity for you. In terms of the way that we kind of run things a little bit different. So my background is in community management. So I'm a systems integrator, technology developer, programmer, you name it. I've done pretty much every hat in that regard. But over the last 10, 15 years of my career, I've focused a lot of that knowledge and skill towards trying to find ways to replicate that success to other people, trying to make it so that I can recreate the things that I know how to do by, influencing large swaths of people in a community setting. And so that's where kind of like where my expertise kind of lies in for running the community, is that I understand the hacking concepts. I understand the technology. I know how to do them. Most of the technologies firsthand. The thing that I'm trying to do is find ways to make sure that we can take those skills and knowledge and kind of recreate the successes that some of these top hackers have, but kind of create a strong middle class of hackers that we can ultimately build up and build them around a platform so that they can come into a community, feel embraced, feel success, and ultimately grow to become, the next generation of top hacker. So part of that is, a couple of things that we put into, for our community is around the notion of like, we are not looking to be the biggest community. We're not looking to try to be, the largest number of hackers in the world. Like, we want to be what I call the right size number of hackers. We look at all the opportunities that we have coming down the pipeline. We look at the contracts that are coming in. We look at the skills that are needed to fulfill those contracts and what is needed. And ultimately, we use that as a means of making sure that our community is growing at a pace that is appropriate for the amount of work that's coming in for them. We want the people that are here at Synac to feel respected. We want them to feel like they have a place where they can come to get work and get paid for that work. And as they work to kind of secure that spot in their kind of daily lives, or expectation that they can receive a certain amount of money from Synac, that they kind of it stays constant. It's really hard to maintain that level of commitment to our researchers if we're constantly just adding, droves of researchers onto the platform all the time. So we take a very methodical approach in bringing people in, making sure that we have the right type of people coming in, so that when they come in, there's work for them to be done, work for them to do rather. And we have the proper parity in terms of skills available versus skills needed to complete that work. So that's one of the big differences that we do there, is that, again, we kind of keep things set up for that in terms of throttling people coming in. So again, it's very thoughtful and mindful. On the tail end of it, we're also the only community out there that has what's called a productivity assessment. The productivity assessment sounds scary when you look at it, but what it means is that, there are people out there who will apply to become a member of the Synac Red Team just to see if they can do it. And once they do it, they don't ever, produce any value. They don't ever log onto a target. They don't ever try to submit anything. They just wanted to get through the challenge. It's seen as a checkbox item for them. For a long time, those people were seen as Synac Red Team members, and as a result of that, they could claim that they were a member of the Synac Red Team and kind of could glean or absorb all that positivity to them without ever contributing anything. So for us, we have a productivity assessment that says every year there's a minimum level of value or points that need to be earned in the community to maintain your status. It sounds very harsh, but one of the things we do recognize in terms of that productivity assessment is that, the Synac Red Team, we have full-time researchers, we have part-time researchers, we have people who just come in for, 1 or 2 weekends, every 6 months. But the reality is that everyone has kind of established what Synac is for them. The most common scenarios we'll hear are things like Synac for me is, a car payment, or Synac is a loan payment or a mortgage. They'll basically come up for a way for to say, look, as long as Synac provides this for me, they're getting what they want out of it. They're getting their expectations met. And then if they determine that, hey, I want a little bit more out of it, they can invest some more time, and they can kind of, massage those interests in that investment to get a bigger return. And so, so our productivity assessment is essentially just making sure it's not some like high bar, like, oh my gosh, you have to be an elite hacker all the time, but we have to have some signal or some indication that you are genuinely interested trying to, become an active value-adding member of our community. And if you don't meet that bar, we have a probationary period in which you have another chance to meet that bar. And if you don't meet that bar 2 consecutive times in a row, then you'll be ushered out of the community in a very nice and respectful way. I mentioned this up front only because I know that this is sometimes, there's a lot of people that have fears of imposter syndrome, or, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to meet this bar. It's insane. The reality is that the bar is not meant to be insanely high. It's actually meant to be respectfully low. It's meant to be like, what I would consider the lowest common denominator, or the greatest, in terms of what we consider a value adding SRT, to make sure that people are, staying active in the community, staying genuinely engaged. And as a result of that, are able to kind of like, maintain that status of being a member and saying that they're a member of the SRT. Because reality, if you're not delivering that level of value, then the really question is of what value are you getting out of being in the community if you're not doing anything. So there's just it's kind of like a two-way street. We try to be respectful of the researcher, which is something I take very, very seriously, as well as making sure that we set clear expectations about what is needed from our product and what is needed from our customers for everyone to be successful. So how we handle our community is very, very important. And the second piece, which is something we just started launching probably about just over a year ago, and as one of the reasons why I've reached out to Nick and to BIC, is we have a notion of a mentorship program. And if you actually go to our website, it's acropolis.synac.com. And I don't know where the public chat is, but someone can share the link. That would be awesome. You'll see a website where we kind of recognize kind of our top performing SRT. You'll see a lot of programs that are up there, a lot of people, their accolades and kind of their over time. When it comes to mentorship, one thing that it's very important to recognize is that mentorship is something that is direly needed to solve this cybersecurity skills gap. We have a lot of people that have skills that ultimately would love to talk with someone and share and teach people how to fish and help them do that. But a lot of times this happens for free on bug bounty forums. This happens for free out on Twitter and whatnot. And again, it's just not consistent. It's not something reliable. It's not something that people can kind of, make solid decisions on, whether or not there's going to be a means for mentorship to actually take place or to rely on it. So one of the things we do in our community is we have a couple of things that kind of fuel our mentorship program. So one, we have what's called featured mentors, which are called our Synac Envoy or SRT Envoy. Nick, or Darth Mr. Vader here, is one of our esteemed envoy, which is why I'm here with him today. Which means that as he comes into the community, he's seen as someone who's kind of like a steward, or if you will, a person who's willing to help out and answer questions and get people started. The reality is most of the people that come into hacking, they can learn the textbook stuff, they understand the technology, but when they get into the wild, sometimes it's a bit cumbersome, or there's something a wrinkle that's thrown at them that they don't know. Like they understand 80% of the problem, but it's the crossing the finish line, which causes the grief. Well, that 20% is where mentorship can really kick in, because what a lot of people feel is that because they couldn't cross that finish line, they feel as if they don't even know the 80%. And that's just really not the fact. And that's kind of where imposter syndrome sinks in. And that's where people start getting this feeling of dejection, and ultimate hacker mental health is impacted. So for us, we really want to invest in a community. So we actually have incentive plans for these featured mentors every year to come and help the community be better. And the goal is for them to answer questions and help people cross that finish line, with the intent that they can ultimately become successful and kind of find their rhythm. In return for that, researchers who receive this help, when they, for example, for submitting vulns, when they do that, they have the opportunity to split their earnings and their points with whoever helped them. So this is a really great way to make sure that not only is Synac making sure that these mentors are available to answer questions, but it also means that the community itself is a way of kind of paying into that that pool of money and saying, look, the opportunity to incentivize people to help each other is there, because researchers can, share their tactics or share kind of little small tidbits and pick up some extra money or points along the way, and can earn some ultimate respect in the community. And so that's a program that I'm really, really excited about. It's in terms of just the potential that it has, which is why I think it's the fourth time I've said it, so apologies. Why we're here today to talk about with BIC is because at the end of the day, what we would like to do is create one of our flywheel communities. And this is a beta program that we're working on right now. And I chose BIC because of our connections and strong relationship there. And we have a couple of other these kind of concepts running, but they're with colleges and other kind of organizations. But the way that I want these to work is, we have take an organization like BIC and working with Nick and the partners there, find and identify 5, 6, 7, 8 people who are solid, who we think that are good SRT material. In the sense that we think that they have skill, they think that they would have time to actually work on the platform, they would have time to participate in mentorship, work on targets, things like that, to ultimately figure out, to answer the question, what does it take to get a foothold? What does it take to become successful? And so if we could find 5 or 6 people from that group, with the idea is assess them, bring them in, bring them on the community, connect them up with mentors, and try to get them successful. And that would be the first phase of the project, which is ultimately getting people from BIC into the SRT and having them feel a sense of success. Once that they are self-sufficient and understand what it means to be successful in the SRT, the idea would be for them to step away from the flywheel community and give their spot to someone else in BIC. And the way they would do that is they would understand the skill sets from BIC. They would be a part of the community. They would understand the up and coming people from the community. They would understand what it means to be a part of the SRT. And they could be that translator for us and say, hey, who in your community is the best one to bring up and step up for this opportunity, right? They can reach into their community and help educate and say, look, this is the bar that you guys need to meet if you want to come to the SRT. And if so, I've got a spot for you. We have ways for you to be self-sufficient and actually creating opportunities for yourself, for this community inside the Synac Red team. And so this is the way that we're kind of why I call it a flywheel thing, because once this gets going and we get 5, 6, 7 people kind of established as a nucleus, like this can kind of grow and keep growing. And again, that's the piece that we're looking for, is we really want, ultimately, we want to make sure that there is, to be completely honest, proper diversity and representation in the red team. It's not a secret out there. It's like, in terms of diversity in cybersecurity is something that definitely needs investment into. And this is something that I personally have been very, very passionate about for the last, I would say, I've been here for 4 years, and I'd say this is something I noticed as I transitioned to this industry pretty much right away. And I've just been empowered over the last 2.5 years to really kind of do something about it. So from our perspective at Synac and from the Synac Red team, this is an opportunity for me to open up opportunities for people to do red team and offensive security and penetration testing type services, get experience, be mentored, get some professional exposure to real life systems, and potentially use that as a revenue stream to complement their job, supplement their job, or give them experience to give them some professional experience to potentially land a new job. Being a part of this community is really fun. There's just a lot of really great people from around the world helping each other out. And largely in part, I just want to make sure that we have the best representation of all the talent across the world. So with that, I will be quiet because I could go on forever. I'm a chatterbox in general, but I'm happy to talk about any of the programs that we do, any of the things that we have. But at a high level, I think that kind of sets the tone for who I am, what Synac is, and the type of people I'm looking to recruit.
All right, not a problem. So I'm going to just read off a couple of the questions that we have so far. So for the first one is, what type of penetration testing does Synac do? Is it only web application? Is there network? Is there cloud? And to expand upon this, because I know a lot of people are going to be curious, is there a way that they can do full-blown network pen tests or mobile web apps, all the things like that?
Yeah. So it all depends on the client, but I'll talk with you kind of statistically. So statistically, majority of our tests or customers that come to us with either web app sec or NetSec. So in terms of, they say, hey, we have a subnet, or we have a subnet that we want you to test, or we have a web app that we want you to test. And that's usually how they enter the door. As those tests become successful and as the relationship grows with the customer, they start asking us for more services like, hey, can you do this type of work? Can you check on this mobile app, right? And again, we have a wide array of skill sets in the SRT. So we can usually say yes to that. And so we have this notion. So being able to do mobile apps is very common as well. I'll be completely honest about mobile apps. We have a lot of really good skilled mobile app security pen testers. And the number of times that the at bats for those opportunities are relatively low. So in terms of breaking into that industry, it's going to be kind of hard in the red team. But if you come with accolades, or if you're like with a high recommendation, or if I can work with Nick or someone that can say, hey, look, it's worth giving this person a shot, I have the influence to be able to give you a shot at checking it out. And if you can show, things work out, then again, I can get you added into that rotation. But it's definitely something that's not like it's just going to happen by default. Because again, like I said, we have a ton of really great mobile talent, Android, iOS, all that fun stuff. But so if you're interested in mobile and like you're really, really solid at it, please let me know. So take that extra effort to make sure that question is asked so that we can kind of set up an opportunity and find an engagement that we can work on. In terms of other stuff, cloud, absolutely. We have customers that hand over applications that are hosted, AWS, GCP, Azure, you name it. So again, we constantly are working in and out of the cloud, looking for, buckets with, various files that should not be in there and detecting those and submitting those for payment. Those happen quite often. But again, those usually will fall under the guise of a host or a web test. Again, when either the cloud domain ranges sit in an IP range that sits in the cloud, or a web app that lives in the cloud with scope that allows you to kind of pivot around. So the answer to that is yes, if that makes sense.
That's really good. I like that. So another question is, I know that you said that in sort of red teaming overall, there's a big need and very little talent. And this is what leads to the crowdsourcing thing. And I wanted to pick your brain a bit more for the crowd about how you all foster the sense of community, because you talked about a lot of the initiatives, but I think a lot of the soft things about how even just you and I came together are one of the things that would help bring people in, and understanding that this is a genuine group of friends that are working together.
So and I think, I mean, I'll give you a little backstory on there because I think it's really funny. Not funny. I think there's a lot of truth to what you just said. So like I said, I've done community work for a long time, and if you go look at, you do OSINT on me. I've just given up. I mean, I've got so much crazy dirt from my past, like you can see online. It's just not funny. But I've been doing community work for so long. But I ran a community manager. I ran a community of community managers, where I was kind of matriculating content down to people and helping people. And what was very common in that is that there was never a talking down to people. It was always a two-way street. I would share my ideas, they would share back, and we would ultimately work on something that to create something that was a sum of all parts. And we were going to take the best ideas, toss out the bad ones or the ones that didn't fit, and just make it something that worked. That's a methodology that I carry forward with me every day in every initiative I do, whether it's for work, personal, whatever like that. I believe wholeheartedly that if you bring great minds into the room and you all talk it out, you'll find something great at the end. And that's kind of how, when I joined Synac, it was really funny. The reason I say it's funny is my first day was like, hey, I want to talk to my community. How do I do that? And they're like, email. And I'm like, what? And I thought and it just kind of threw me for a loop. I'm like, why? I don't, get that. And so, but it was indicative of the state of the world in terms of the mindset. Security, it's about, least privileged, only know what you need to know. People, it was like this sense of it's me versus you, them versus us. And everyone was kind of closed off and private. And then that was what I was told when I came in. And then as I started meeting these researchers in person, I was like, man, couldn't be further from the truth. These, researchers love to talk with each other. They love to find other people who understand them. And I think what's really interesting about that is, me, as for myself growing up, I grew up in small town Texas. Technology was something that was not super, prominent for most people. So for me to find others that were like me really reaffirming, right? For me, like to be able to say, wow, there are others like me. And the notion of feeling alienated when you don't find somebody like yourself, those two things ring very home for me. And so for me, creating this sense of home and family is like, I want researchers to come to Synac to have fun. And yeah, they get money and they get points and stuff like that. Great. And they can earn cool prizes. Like those are all in my mind the benefit, but I want them to come and have a sense of family identity, throw the snark, have the attitude, be funny, be helpful. And again, like through that positive energy, you create a force that is capable of changing the world, in my opinion. So every chance I get, and again, unfortunately, as I get more busy and things keep going more fast, I have to, or more fast, I guess faster is the right word. As things kind of keep speeding up, my time to do these outreaches kind of drops a bit. But I always do my best to try to make sure, like when opportunities come up, it's like I have the opportunity to sit back and talk to people and be like, hey, what can we do to help? Like, let's brainstorm. Let's talk about what's going on. What can we do to ultimately, dial things up and make it so that if I can unlock an opportunity to unlock opportunities for you, or, things like that. And for me, that's what it's all about. I think every success that I've had in my career, if I think back to it, really was a combination of me listening and being willing to speak up. And I think if you have those two things happening in concert and working with other people that are like-minded, I think I honestly think there's no problem we can't solve. So that's the ideals that I put in the community, all the programs, all the initiatives, all the rewards, the culture. It's meant to be respectful, inclusive, I don't want to be buzzwordy on that, but really do. I do want it to feel like it's a second home for people and a retreat for people that don't have the ability to find people that are like themselves. Another passion that I have is around Artemis, or it's the women's group in SRT, which is, I have two daughters, and it kills me to think that, 10 years ago or 5 years ago that, they would be almost shunned or alienated out of this industry. And for me, like anything I can do while I'm in this position to open those doors for as many people as possible is what I want to do. And having as many opinions and ideas and diversity and thought in those conversations is what is going to make the best product at the end. So,
that's great. And then with that, you actually triggered a thought of for the people who are interested in getting into Synac, but let's say they're in college or in high school, they have the smarts, but they don't have the experience. What would be some tips that you have for them in terms of breaking into the platform, and then what they would do if they were selected to get onto the platform?
So we actually have researchers who are under 18. 16 is currently our lowest bar right now, legally, for various reasons. But I'm actually talking next week with someone that's 14. I'm not going to be able to bring them on platform, but I'm going to try to provide guidance for them, hook them up with someone to stay connected with until they become of age where I can actually, work with them professionally. But I make no mistake, the talent is out there and it's getting younger and younger, because the hunger is there, the content is there. If you have the drive, and the free time of youth, then you choose to invest it that right way. I have no problem, working with people like that. But in terms of if let's say you're 16 or above or in college, the one thing I would just say right off the bat is to just apply first. That would be first and foremost. If you think you have this, if you have the skills, just apply, because there's really not going to be any problems to it. If the only time that you have to really have special consideration is going to be when you're under 18, and that's going to be one where we have to walk you through the onboarding process. But if you were to email out or talk to me or talk to Nick and say, hey, I need to, I'm under 18, I want to try to apply the SRT, what do I do? Just literally ask that question to one of us, and we'll talk with you and talk you through it and see what we can do. But if you don't know, I think that's probably the biggest thing. If you don't know about the skills, do you have what it takes? We have a couple of ways of doing this. So one is, if you go, for everyone who knows about Hack the Box, we have a Synac Red Team track on Hack the Box. And what that track is meant to do is, we know that track is leaked. We know that there are some challenges. You can get flags if you want to. So just putting that out there to start off with. But what that is meant to do is that's meant to help with imposter syndrome. A lot of people will see the Synac brand and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm not the elite. I'm not the best of the best. I'm not going to be able to make it. The reality is that when it comes to a crowd, what we want is we want the sum of all parts. So we need people in the Moneyball baseball metaphor, right? We need singles, doubles, triples, and home runs. So again, as long as you can get your foot in the door as a single, you can evolve into a double, triple, or a home run. But there is a minimum bar to pass. So sometimes people feel that bar is so high that they just pull themselves out and they say, look, I'm not even going to try. And so from my perspective, what we did is we went to Hack the Box and we put a track out there that says, if you do well on this track, meaning if you can take every one of these challenges in earnest, then you should feel comfortable applying to the Synac Red Team. You will probably do well on at least one leg of the tech assessment, which our tech assessment will have 4 components starting next week. It'll have web, host, mobile, and the new one will be API testing next week, starting next week, I believe. If you pass any one of those tests, then you'll be allowed into the community. And then from there, you can use mentorship. You can use, in this case, the BIC Flywheel community. You can use the Envoy program. You can just self-study. You could just, do whatever you need to find success. There's a lot of lifelines, if you will, to try to find success for those who try. So that's the best way for people who don't know that they are quite ready, is to go take that Hack the Box track. Like I said, it's like $9 a month, $8 a month, something like that with Hack the Box to get a VIP pass. And the track can be completed in 1 or 2 months, usually no problem. So if you're really looking for that, do I want to waste my time or do I want to invest my time? Then do that. And that's a way of getting assurances. And that, again, it just means that you have the skill that you should have the confidence to go ahead and apply. That's all that track is meant to try to help you kind of, get you out of neutral, if you will. But in terms of applying, there's really nothing special you need to do. The only thing is under 18 and above 16. That's the one where I'm like, we just need to work with the parents, and it's kind of a weird, kind of a curveball. But again, if the talent is there, we're willing to work with people to get it. To share out really quick, we started recruiting a 16-year-old. He turned 17, got on it wasn't his aging that got him on platform. He just turned 17 right as he joined. Was on the platform for about 20 days, 30 days. We hooked him up with some of our mentors. Again, he was very sharp, could talk the talk, just needed some guidance. And the first 30 days got his first RCE. And within the 4 or 5 days, he got about 3 more. And again, he went from working at Target as a cashier, to being this as his full-time job while he's going to high school, figuring things out, and that's what he's doing. So again, I'm not saying that is a story that will recreate itself for everybody, but it is possible. And I'm very much of a thing. Like, I grew up, I consider myself old school hacker in the sense that I'm 100% meritocracy. I think if you can do it, do it. I don't care what artificial segmentation we put you in. If you have the skill to do the skill, like do it. And I will make it so that you can do it as long as it's legal. So from my perspective, if you're, I don't care what your background is, where you come from, if you're up and coming or you're an old guard, like if you can show that you have signal and that you have skill to do a task, I'm going to do what I can to give you a fair shot at doing that task and getting paid for it.
No, that's awesome. I know that the RCE instance definitely won't be replicated. I know, at least for myself, I unfortunately didn't get my first vol until actually talking to you, and then actually leveraging the community. Because without that, I was just in my what I'll call silo of excellence, trying to figure out how everything would work. But without that, since that was the last question I personally had, so we're going to switch it over towards the actual chat, and I'll just be reading some that we get off the ground. So first one is, what sort of skill set are you looking for not just like SRT members, but the big cohort of those 5 to 6 special people?
For those 5 to 6 people, I mean, to me, I think it's a prototype, right? It's definitely, I think what it comes down to is someone who has raw talent and skill. Maybe not as I would say let's put it in personas. One persona could be someone who just has raw talent and just wants to be a go-getter, wants to help out, willing to listen, willing to work with mentors. willing to learn. And then the most important part of that is to reciprocate, to turn around and pass that forward and pay it forward. To make this viral, or to make this community what I want it to be, which is, again, a self-sustaining, growing opportunity for BIC to basically transition people into the industry in some capacity, to earn money, to earn experience or whatever. This is something I want it to be, something that BIC, can basically self-manage. But for that to happen, we need people at the onset to kind of build that virtuous cycle. People who are willing to pay it forward, and again, as the next generation comes in, you can start stepping away a little bit and being more independent if you want, but again, I would love these people to be stewards of that community, and someone who's willing to speak up and help me understand, what are the challenges? What can I do to help out? What are the, is it a platform issue? Is it a communication issue in terms of skill gap expectations or whatever? How can we ultimately be more successful in making it so that BIC has a low lift, low effort way of providing opportunity to talented people in its organization on Synac? So that would be the first one. Second one would be someone, we definitely need a couple of people, who have been in the industry a good amount of, a long time. And then I say a long time, it's always relative. I don't like saying, it has to be 5 years. Everyone hates that. But the reality is we need people in the community to be like the seniors in the room, if you will, who've been around, who've seen how things work, who can give guidance, both professional and tactical. Like, hey, I'm trying to work on this. Well, hey, you know what? Technically, yes, you can exploit that vuln. Professionally, you probably shouldn't. You should probably do this because. Does that make sense? Like, I want to have people, like trusted confidants in the room that that can provide. Exactly. Great. I was trying not to be old or ageism because I'm pushing the age right now these days. But the reality is that we need trusted confidants in that group that can ultimately provide that professional maturation for the up and comers. So that's another thing that I'm looking for. But in terms of just skill, strong web, strong network security, cloud and API, mobile. If there's a niche of mobile testers in the organization, great. I'd love to have a strong mobile tester because I can bring that person into those opportunities, and then we can start working on working things up. I'm trying to work within the confines of repeated success. Mobile has a lot of factors that are outside of the individual's control around what would allow them to get onto a mobile test, like the availability of mobile tests for them in the first place. So I don't want to lean into mobile too much, but again, if you have like a rising star or someone who's super exceptional, willing to try to work with you on that. But I would say strong web, strong NetSec web or host testing would definitely be the skill set that will be the most in use.
Awesome. So this one, they're going to ask, when does the cohort start? But we'll also change it up a little bit since it's not an actual timeline, as more so what would the process of applying or getting into the BIC cohort specifically be like?
Yeah, so for me, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, we gave you a special referral code or reference code for applications.
Correct.
If I remember right. So for me, the biggest thing is to use that code. That code is going to signal a flag of our recruiters at the top end, and they're going to know that this is going to be that, when this person is going through the flow, they're going to have considerations that go through the whole process. And when it's done, they're going to know how to add you to the right stuff. So there really isn't anything that you need to do special to get started. The reality is that we just need to get, like I said, 5 or 6 people that can be considered, hey, we're going to work together to kind of make this work. Like, we're going to work together to kind of generate a second generation of ourselves in this community. And if that's really all that we need right now, we've got Nick, we've got, I think, 2 other people in the group right now. I think one's in the process. And again, that's all that is right now is them in the community, and not everyone is not necessarily hacking on targets and earning money, stuff like that. To me, my goal is to take those 5 or 6 and have, weekly conversations or interactive conversations with them, try to get them opportunities to get them successful, figure out to get a rhythm so that they can ultimately communicate what rhythm is needed to be successful to that next generation. So for me, that's what we're trying to build, that nexus to kind of then go into second gear. We're still building the nexus. The second gear is going to be getting them engaged, getting them working on targets, giving them opportunities. If you're a U.S. citizen, the opportunities are going to be massive because we have a lot of government contracts that will that are opened up to you. And again, that it's one of those things where that's something where it's a great opportunity. So there's a lot of ways in which I can uncork opportunities, but I just need to make sure that the people are there willing and able to take advantage of them when they're presented.
Awesome. Next question will be are you looking for beginners or people with a bit more experience?
So I don't mind. So again, like I'm not saying that we have to only recruit the 5 to 6 initial mentors. If there's people who are qualified and want to get going and want to be a part, like here's the one thing I'm a big fan of is that I think mentorship is not a badge that you earn. It's just a badge that you do. You either help people or you don't. And I don't think that you need experience. Everyone has something that they can share. They have some problem that they've solved, whether it's small or large, that someone else has. And as long as you try to share whatever knowledge you do have with people, to me, like you're a mentor. So for right now, if you're interested in going, like you can apply, grow, and we can bring, as long as you pass the tech assessment and the background checks and stuff, you will be brought into the community. And you can get going and you can benefit kind of from being on the grass floor or what's the grassroots? I don't know. There's a cliche there I just completely butchered. Apologies for that. But you can get in on the ground floor. That was it. And just kind of be a part of those conversations. You won't be excluded from those graybeard conversations, as you will. Like you'll be able to share your perspective. At the end of the day, anyone who can share what their experience with Synac, the Synac Red Team is, how they were successful, and communicate that back to others in BIC so that they can potentially replicate that success. To me, that's the type of person I want sooner than later, because those are the type of people I want to invest in, provide opportunities to, and ultimately figure out, understand how can I make the Synac platform better to, service or to make these, make people more successful with less effort.
Awesome. And one more question. This is more of a personal question, but I know that there have been some people who have applied already. Is there a cool down period of any type before somebody can attempt to apply again?
There is, but there's a kind of a unique scenario that happens. So we automatically refresh all of our challenges every 6 months, okay. Which was due to happen in December. We detected, though, that some of our challenges were leaked on a private forum. And so we initiated a refresh beginning of this month. So if you took the challenges before September, then you could probably reapply now, and it would be fine to reapply because you'd be doing a different set of challenges or challenges with different stuff. Okay. That being said, we do have an interesting opportunity, which I'll throw out here. I think Nick, let me put it this way. I told Nick to share it with you guys. We have our open invitational is happening at the beginning of November. So every November, and this is something that you can pass along to anyone that you know. So we have a wait list that comes in, again, like I said, we make sure that we're recruiting at the pace in which making sure that researchers are constantly, matched to the opportunity that's available to them. One time a year, though, we do an open invitational, I call it the cattle call, where we put a CTF out there and we look at the top performers of that CTF. And despite what your location is, your region, whatever like that, or whatever it is that, when I say location or region, predominantly is because we look at contracts. They are based on citizens. Like you have to be U.S. citizen to work on this. So, or stuff like that. So if I recruit a bunch of non-U.S. citizens for when we have a lot of U.S. citizen growth work, then again, it kind of is a disparity there. But the cattle call or the CTF that we do is basically a one time a year where you could show up, you can perform, and you have the individual opportunity to skip the wait list and get a tech assessment bypass and go straight to background check. And so it's a great way for you to kind of take control of the narrative, take control of what's going on. It's run on Hack the Box. I think I shared, or the link is redteamctf.synac.com. And so that's kind of your one shot to do it. Now, what's also cool about this is that we give away cool prizes. So this year we're giving away a couple of Steam Decks, some Flipper Zeros, some Hack 5 gear, pineapples, and some rubber duckies, and just a bunch of random stuff. So again, that's a great way to, plus you get to join the Synac platform, plus you get to learn about a bunch of cool stuff. So, oh, sorry, get to earn cool prizes. So that's another angle that you can use to get in without having to wait 6 months.
That and the CTF is honestly just really fun. I know that last year's is on YouTube, but I spent the full time just glued to my computer going through the last one. But I'll definitely be pushing that out again in our chat, especially now that we're getting a little bit more interest. So on to the next question.
Yeah.
Is there any?
So
go ahead.
Yeah. So you can ask the question if you need it for recording. So that's fine.
Actually, it would be, is there any type of non-compete clauses that would prohibit anybody from being on the SRT?
So the only things that we have, and we have it in our application process, is that if you work for a list of industry vendors that have been deemed as not necessarily I would say conflicts of interest, like in terms of they're employees of those agencies, they can't be a part of the Synac Red Team. But in terms of like, if you work for a normal pen testing firm, I would say we always tell people just look at your HR, look at your docs. What we have seen, or at least what I have seen specifically over the last 4 years, is when I first joined 2019, there were a lot of people that had contracts that were like, oh my gosh, you can't moonlight, you can't work on other things, you know, there's all these restrictions, whatnot. And some of those are just boilerplate language that are built into contracts. But as people started asking more and more, the value proposition of Synac Red Team is actually really cool, because what it means is that, one, it's like, hey, you're able to give your employee complimentary money by just letting them go do this, right? And that's something that's interesting. They get exposed to technologies that they wouldn't get exposed to necessarily in your location. They can then use that information to help you make better decisions for your technology or better secure your assets as they learn more. And it's a great training opportunity for them, right? So again, it's a lot of plus wins from the company to allow people to do this. But the long story is you need to check with your HR team first, or whatever employment contract you signed. If you signed one, you can always ask for an exemption. Like, that's something that people have done, and have done with quite a lot of success over the last 2 years. Again, as people are looking to try to retain the talent and the great, the people teams, they're calling it like the great resignation or whatever like that going on. Like, you know, people want to retain their top talent. So if you've got talent and you want to try that out, just ask the question. You'd be surprised what comes back most of the time. But in terms of once you're on platform, there is one element of, I wouldn't say non-compete, but it is an element of conflict of interest, where if you work for a company for some reason that has a connection to the target that you are, that is up to test, then it's up to the researchers to opt out or to self-manage your own conflicts of interest. So in some cases, we have an employee of a company, a researcher, an in-house researcher for a company who happens to buy Synac, and then eventually that researcher is like, oh, okay, I just know not to connect to these orgs ever. And if it gets sensitive enough, we can exclude that researcher specifically. But again, we've only had a couple of scenarios of that, but the researchers are really solid at being able to self-manage those. We make it very clear that the researchers need to not have conflicts of interest before they actually connect and do testing on the target.
Awesome. And with that will actually be our last question that we just did. I'll give it a couple more seconds, but do you have any more closing thoughts before we head out, Ryan?
I can talk forever. So asking me that question is just like, immediate time fill. So I saw one message. It flashed across my screen. I think it was a Comey or something.
Correct.
They applied and got rejected. If you applied and got rejected, just let me know. There was a small interval where we kicked this off, and it wasn't full. The onboarding experience didn't see the reference code. So if you were rejected, like just from the resume submission, then again, it's something that just let us know, and we'll double check to make sure that was good. But in general, we just need to make sure that you have some element of security interest or experience. At the worst case scenario, for anyone that wants to apply through BIC, I'm happy to give them a tech assessment shot. So if you weren't given a tech assessment shot, I'm pretty sure we can make that work. If you can pass the tech assessment, then again, it kind of all things are healed at that point in a way from moving forward. I can't, unfortunately, undo the fact that you were rejected, and that was annoying, most likely. But again, like that's really what it comes down to, is that now that we have this reference code and those views are set up, if you're in this BIC cohort, we try to like make sure that we give you a shot to go to the tech assessment to see if you've got the talent that maybe the resume doesn't highlight. And then we make our decision from that point. But in order to do that, you do have to take the Hack the Box assessment. We give you a week to complete all the challenges. I want to say will be 15 or 16 challenges when it's all said and done. Complete as many of them as you can. The focus I would tell people is you only need to pass one discipline. Either need to pass web, host, or API when it comes to be able to get a foot in the door. So mobile, we only have one test, and it's really, I wouldn't call it, it's more of a like, do you understand how to do mobile? It's really what it's checking. But if you can pass one of those categories, so if you find yourself in a time crunch or you want to prioritize it, like focus on web. Web is the one. If you're a web AppSec person, if you're a NetSec person, focus on host. Start with those, and then and once you've completed one of those things, you know that you're in. And then everything you do after that is just icing on the cake to give you more opportunity on platform. But at least you know that you're in the door, and we can work with you and have those conversations to give you those opportunities to take those again.
Awesome.
So that helps. Your shooter asked the question. Security engineer side. Active with bug bounty, but that might. And I'm not going to try to say your name. Yeah, I'm going to try not to, because I hate mispronouncing names so much. It's one of my things, my pet peeves. Again, if you apply through BIC, we're happy to give you a tech assessment shot. If you come in and do that, then you have a shot of getting in and ultimately being a part of the SRT. Whether or not you're successful or not has a lot to do with your level of skill. The one thing I always tell people is that the reason, because of the way we do our community, it's kind of like, we have a lot of the researchers that we have are like distilled excellence. Like they're the best of the best and best. The raw numbers, like our numbers, we keep getting better as we get going, because we keep the good people, and the people who leave out the back. So the room gets more hard as time goes on. But again, by coming in and being a part of this BIC cohort, we have some opportunities to try to provide some opportunities that are specific to BIC to kind of get footholds and get people started. Once you get going, and you kind of figure out what success looks like, what is needed from you to be successful, whatnot, you can make those further decisions about, do I go faster? Do I go harder? Do I stay where I am? Or is this for me? So I'm not going to tell you that it's going to be easy, but it's definitely going to be up to you to figure that out. So yeah, your reputation on other platforms will help, but it's only going to, in this case, you'll be able to take the tech assessment either way if you come in through the BIC.
Yeah, from what I understand, SRT is very friendly for anybody getting in, or anybody applying.
Anyone apply? Yes, I would say. I would love it if we could let everyone in. My Twitter DMs would be so much easier to answer if that was the case. So, but long story short, that's kind of the nature. Is like, if anything you take away from this today is that there is a human behind this machine, and I am the face of that human, and I am that human. But the reality is that there is a business that's run here. There is a community. There are expectations here. But just know that this is something I'm very passionate about. This is something that I really want to see succeed. And again, if I can find some people to partner with to kind of build this community out, there's going to be a lot of great opportunities that we can uncork for BIC and for other organizations as well. So just let me know how I can help. If you have a question, stupid or not, or you feel it's stupid or not, just ask it. My LinkedIn is probably the easiest way, to be honest, to get me. My Twitter is literally a dumpster fire for DMs. So I would just ping me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to answer questions, and that'll be the easiest way to make sure that I see you in at least under a week.
Awesome. And if anybody else has any other questions of Ryan, you can reach out to me, and we have a pretty consistent, I talk to you probably once a week. So if anybody has any questions, you could ping me, and I'll follow up with you on them. But no, I'd love to just thank you for taking your time for all this, taking your time to answer a lot of the questions and clear up a lot of the confusion that a lot of people have. And I look forward to continuing working with you.
Sure. And someone really quick is asking me to share my LinkedIn. I don't
I can
see a way
post
to.
it in our Discord.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Why don't you go for that? That's good.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm really easy to find. Just know there's another Ryan Rutin that's my age that's in Ohio. That's not me. So
here we go. I'll post that in there. All right. Thank you so much.
all right. No worries. You guys have a great one. And hey, nice pneumatic keyboard, man.
Thanks. Take care.
All right. Bye.